welcome into Coach Craig's Sports. This is the MLB DFS Core Pick video, Core Pick live stream for today, Tuesday, May 16th. So in this video today, I'll be going over a recap of yesterday's picks, seeing how they turned out, talking a little bit about the weather spots for today, which does not look too bad at this point in time, and then going over to FanDuel, talking about the core picks that I do have for today overall. And then last but not least, moving over to YouTube, going to the bottom half of my cheat sheet for the day and talking about the top GPP teams to stack for today overall. But without further ado, we'll get started with a recap of yesterday's picks. A little bit of hit or miss day here at pitcher. We had Framber Valdez. He was $10,700. Got to 24 points, so did give him a miss yesterday. He only pitched 4 innings, gave up 4 earned runs, unfortunately. But he did have 8 strikeouts, so the strikeout numbers were still pretty good against the Cubs. Unfortunately, giving up those 4 runs kind of limited his impact overall and only going 4 innings. And then at first base, we went with Jose Abreu at $2,400, a guy that historically has hit the Chicago Cubs very well. Obviously has not had the greatest start to the season, but he got to 22.2 points last night, and he was the 3rd overall first baseman on yesterday's slate, so a pretty good value there, one of the better paydown options overall. Then at shortstop, we went with Trey Turner. He had really good history in the past, but he, at $3,000, only got 6 points, so we did give him a push. Not anybody that really helped us, not anybody that really hurt us at the same time, just kind of a guy that was in the lineup. Then we went and moved down to the outfield where we had Christian Yelich. He was $3,100, had really good history versus Jack Flaherty in the past. Flaherty actually pitched really good yesterday, and Christian Yelich 0 for 2. He did get a walk, but he tweaked his back once again yesterday, so he got hurt. They still gave him a miss, just kind of unfortunate there with his back issue. And then last but not least, went with that paydown option in George Springer at $2,800. Got to 6.7 points, so he did end up being a push yesterday over 4, but he did score a run and have an RBI. So once again, not really anybody that killed us, but not anybody that helped us at the same time. So pretty hit or miss yesterday. Obviously, Jose Abreu highlights the trio. Some other guys that I did have in my cheat sheet that I played myself personally, Jorge Polanco, Alex Bregman, they had really good days as well. But with that being said, moving on to the next day, we're going to talk a little bit of weather, but at this point in time, does not really look like there is any concern for weather. So if anything does change with that throughout the day, I'll leave a comment down below in the comments. But at this point in time, looks pretty good for tonight for the 12-game main slate, which is kind of good news to see, not having to worry too much about weather at this point in time. Then we're going to stop sharing this screen. We're going to go over to FanDuel, talk about the core picks that I do have for today overall. So just getting this all pulled up here. So I'm going to start off by saying today, not a lot of outfielders that stand out. Even when I was doing my cheat sheet and I'm trying to put 6 in there, in terms of like history versus hitter versus pitcher, in terms of recent history and stuff like that, not a lot of outfielders really stood out today. So did not end up with any of them in my core picks. But at the pitcher position, going with Zach Wheeler. He's only $9,400. Got some pretty decent history versus the San Francisco Giants. He did not face them last year. Hasn't faced them obviously yet at this point this year. Once upon a time, Zach Wheeler was a San Francisco Giants prospect before he got traded to the Mets, so maybe you got a little bit of a revenge narrative there if you really want to throw that in there. But I do like the upside he has. San Francisco is a team that can pile up some strikeouts as well. When we look at Zach Wheeler, he's got 3 wins. He's at 3.8 ERA on the season. $9,400, like I said, pretty good price tag for him, averaging about 34 points per game. When we look at what he's done so far this season, a couple starts in the 20s. We got that 19 there, but the high-end upside is definitely there. So definitely got to do like targeting today, especially from that paydown spot of $9,400. There is quite a few pitchers that are definitely in play today. If you're looking at a little bit more information on those, be sure to check out my Patreon, patreon.com/Coach Craig Sport, for a little bit more in-depth knowledge of those. But you can look at Shane Bieber, you can look at Justin Verlander, you can look at all these guys on the high end, look pretty good today. There's some guys in the medium range too as well. So mainly the guys at the tippy top down to Zach Wheeler, a lot of them are going to look pretty good today. It's just kind of those really, really cheap guys that are going to have a little bit more risk, but definitely a lot of options. So probably a good day to mix and match at the pitcher position once again. But Zach Wheeler is the guy that stands out the most to me, especially given his price tag. Then at first base, we're going to go with Josh Naylor. So this is more of a recent history one than history versus the pitcher. So in the matchup today, Lance Lynn pitching for the Chicago White Sox has not been good whatsoever to start this season, which is kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is, being a White Sox fan and all myself. But Josh Naylor, 4 for 20 versus him in his career. So he's only had 200 versus him in his career. However, Josh Naylor has been hitting the ball extremely well as of late. He's only $2,600. You see averaging 9 fantasy points per game on the season, 214 average, 6 home runs, 26 RBIs. But look at these last 3 games where he's been up over 20 points all 3 games. You know, maybe this is a little bit of point chasing at this point in time, but really turning it around. You know, typically it's right-handed pitching pretty well. There is some power to be had there. So definitely do like in the matchup versus Lance Lynn, who is, you know, a primarily fastball pitcher just in general. So do like that. $2,600 Josh Naylor today. Going to offer some pretty strong upside. So let's see if we can hit first base at that paydown spot 2 days in a row with Jose Abreu being the guy from yesterday. Then at third base, we're going with another Cleveland Guardian and Jose Ramirez. He's $3,300, which is pretty reduced price tag for him at this point in time as well. And when we're looking at him, he's 11 for 32 with 4 home runs versus Lance Lynn in his career. So not going to get too much better than that on today's slate overall. So definitely do like attacking Jose Ramirez on this slate. Like I said, $3,300, pretty cheap price tag for him. If you look at what he's done on the season, 285, 4 home runs, 22 RBIs, averaging just over 11 fantasy points per game. So not too bad of production there. He's got a 3-game hitting streak going on, up over 12 points in all those games as well. So some decent upside there as well. Hasn't quite hit for the power as much this season, but could definitely turn that around against Lance Lynn, a guy that he has historically hit well and hit well for power in the past. Then we move down to Bo Bichette. He is 3 for 8 versus Domingo Germán. He's got 2 home runs versus him in his career as well. So I do like the upside that Bo Bichette offers today. $3,700, pretty reasonable price tag for him at this point in time. And 324, 8 home runs, 27 RBIs, averaging about 12 fantasy points per game on the season. You know, recent history has been a little bit hit or miss here, but 2 multi-hit games in the last 3 games. So there's some upside to be had there at the same time. Guy that can collect some hits and bunches too. So definitely do like that upside in general. And then, like I said today, I wasn't too fond of the outfielders, so this is something I typically don't like to do. But with the outfield kind of being the way it is today, stacked 2 third basemen on here. So typically I don't like making a utility slot guy a core play because I like giving you guys some more flexibility just in general. Obviously, if you don't like one of these players that I do have here, if you want to mix and match it, if you want to play Nolan Arenado in one lineup, Jose Ramirez in a different lineup, you can definitely do that as well. Paul Goldschmidt's going to look pretty good for this Cardinals team as well, which we'll talk a little bit more about in the stacks. But at this point in time, the last core hitter is Nolan Arenado. He is $3,000, so he is still cheap at this point in time. He had that struggle for a little bit early on in the season. Hitting 264, 7 home runs, 30 RBIs, averaging just under 11 fantasy points per game. And you see as of late, there's 3 multi-hit games in the last 4 games. Some pretty good upside as of late. So let's see. This is a 6 or 7 game hitting streak at this point in time. Last 5 games have all been 15 points or more. So he's really starting to turn around at this point in time. $3,000. Why not take advantage of it at this point in time? In his career versus Wade Miley, he is 9 for 23 versus him as well. Doesn't have a single home run versus him, but that could very much change today, even though Wade Miley has pitched rather well to start the season, but Cardinals hitters have hit him pretty well in the past. But with that being said, if you go with these 5 players that I do have listed here, you have $13,000 exactly remaining, just over $3,200 per player. So a little bit of room, flexibility. If you want to pay up for a couple guys, pay down for a couple guys, you can definitely do that. Or if you want to take a little bit more balanced approach, that's definitely fine on today's slate overall. Obviously, there's 12 games out there, so feel free to mix and match quite a bit on today's slate overall. Me, myself, personally, probably going to be entering about 3 different lineups. Zach Wheeler at least being in 1 or 2 of them, kind of mixing and matching with some of these stacks that we'll be talking about here in a minute. So with that being said, going to stop sharing the FanDuel screen. We're going to go over to the YouTube community tab, check out the bottom half of the cheat sheet, and talk about the top GPP stacks for today. So with that being said, can't talk right now. But with that being said, the cheat sheet is 100% free. It is up on Facebook. It's up on Twitter. It's up on the YouTube community tab. So be sure to check that out. Good starting point as you're building out some lineups today. Like I said, outfield's kind of a mess today. So feel free to mix and match outfield as your heart desires, especially if you're trying to stack a couple different teams in there. But in terms of the top stacks that I do have for today, we have the Cleveland Guardians going against Lance Lynn. They have hit him really well in the past. Obviously, 2 of them ended up in my core picks, even though Josh Naylor didn't have the greatest history versus him. But you can look at once again, Jose Ramirez as a core pick, has really good history versus Lance Lynn. Andres Gimenez, Ahmed Rosario, Stephen Kwan, and Miles Straw have all pretty good history versus Lance Lynn, so it could be a favorable matchup for them. And then Lynn has not been pitching well as of late. Obviously, he is a predominantly fastball pitcher too, so if they can get ahead on him pretty early, could be good results for this Cleveland team overall today. And then we have the St. Louis Cardinals. They have hit Wade Miley very well in the past, whether it's Nolan Arenado, whether it is Paul Goldschmidt. Those are the two main ones. Wilson Contreras also has some pretty good history versus him. Wade Miley has pitched rather well to start the season, but that could very much change in the start. So do like taking some chances on the Cardinals today. Dylan Carlson also has good history versus him, but he's dealing with a little bit of ankle injury at this point in time. Kind of do assume that he's not going to play today. Tommy Edman, you can throw in there too. I believe he's 5 for 12 versus Wade Miley as well. And then we go over to the New York Mets. Like going with them today, it is kind of, the opener followed by the multi-inning reliever. For the Tampa Bay Rays, looks like Jalen Beeks will get the nod as the opener, probably pitching like 2 innings. And then Yanni Chirinos behind him. There's not a lot of history here, but some of the history that they do have, if you want to look at Francisco Lindor, Tommy Pham, if he ends up starting, has pretty good history versus Jalen Beeks. And then neither one really has history versus Yanni Chirinos, but some opportunities to be had there with that Mets lineup. Starling Marte is an interesting option as a paydown option. I believe he's like $2,800 as well. And starting to hit the ball just a little bit better as of late. And then last but not least, I went with the Rangers. They're going against Jared Schuster today. He is starting for the Atlanta Braves. He's making his 3rd career start. First 2 starts have not been the greatest so far. So definitely do like attacking some of those Rangers bats, primarily the right-handed bats of their lineup since Schuster is a left-handed pitcher. But with that being said, that's kind of what I do have in terms of the MLB DFS Core Picks for today. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, feel free to leave them down in the comments and I'll get back to you throughout the day. I'll be posting as many starting lineups as I can get to down there as well as the day moves along. Once again, if anything does change with the weather, we'll list that down there as well. Also, be sure to let me know your favorite play on today's slate overall. Definitely interested in hearing what you guys have to say. But with that being said, if you're new to my channel, checking out for the very first time, enjoy the content that I am putting out, please feel free to subscribe. Definitely would appreciate it. Helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS primarily. Right now, focusing on MLB DFS and USFL DFS. Those are the 2 main ones going on at this point in time. So definitely be sure to check out those if you are very interested, which I assume you're least interested in the MLB side since you are watching this video at this point in time. But with that being said, definitely do appreciate everyone taking the time out of their day, whether you're watching live or on replay. Definitely means a lot to me. I hope each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in MLB DFS tonight.